Well, hi everybody. It's Dave Benson again, and Carol and I are here, I think, for some closing thoughts. First off, what I'd like to do is I'd like to give some thank yous at the start. I'd like to thank all of the moderators, the panelists, all of the staff that worked on this terrific conference today, my Fannie Mae colleagues, and especially you, Carol, and your staff, who've been so fantastic in setting up this conference. It was really, I think, all of us got a lot out of this. Just kind of a thought that I had in having been here is, and perhaps many of you had this kind of same feel, some of what was talked about here might have felt very familiar, and some of it may have felt very, very different. For me, what was familiar was a panel talking about mortgage digitization, something that we're at Fannie Mae in the middle of and involved in. Felt familiar. It was the kind of panel that I felt like I could have, that I've either seen that panel before, maybe could have even been on the panel and could have contributed. But then there were other panels which were so delightfully new for me, which would have been, for instance, learning a lot more about the real challenges here in California, the zoning and the challenges of building density within California, something really new to me. And I'm guessing for each of you, you felt very familiar in something and you felt very, very different others. I think that was kind of the point here, was to, in a sense, give us a spectrum of experiences, listening to people talk about things, some of which may have felt familiar, some of which is very different, but it's all of that together that I think gave a very rich experience, at least for me, and I hope for all of you. And I do very much like the fact that we ended up with a panel that was, if for nothing else, incredibly optimistic about the future. I found that very, very inspirational. The notions that were said there is a future out there that sounds very, very bright, although we know that we've got, I think, a long way to get there, given the problems that we talked about, I think, at the start of the conference. So once again, thank you, Carol. I really appreciate all the effort into this conference. It's been a wonderful, wonderful day.
Great, David. I couldn't agree with you more. First, thank all of the panelists and speakers who participated. And I have to say, wow, I feel like, I don't want to say that I sometimes feel like I know everything there is to know in housing, but I learned a lot today, and I can appreciate your comments about knowing a lot about some things and a lot less about others, and this was really useful for me, as I hope it was for all of you here. And back at you in terms of the partnership. This was just a great collaborative team effort between our two teams, and I'm delighted to have had the opportunity to work with you and your team, and I know our team feels the same way, so thank you so much for that. My big takeaway, I think I need to say, is I knew there was a lot of innovation happening out there in the housing space, but this just really brought it home to me how much is going on, how diverse the ecosystem of that housing innovation is. And I was actually quite I don't want to say surprised, but inspired by the fact that so many of the companies we heard from and the initiatives we've heard about today really are focused on bending the cost curve, creating more affordability. And I was impressed with how much people are thinking about the intersection of policy and regulation with those innovations. And I think just doing all of this in a remarkably thoughtful way. So that was some of the big takeaways from my perspective. Before we close out totally, I also just loved the housing marketplace, and I love everybody to just give a big hand for all the folks who gave their pitches upstairs. And I learned a tremendous amount just in that 20-minute period going from table to table, and it's my honor to announce I feel like it's the Oscars, you know. The winner is Acre. So I don't know if they're here, but really who I had met before, and I really enjoyed their work. But again, thank you to you and your team, and then just a shout out to a couple of special folks who really were involved in this. Susan Anthony, who was our event coordinator, is just fabulous, run of show. Thank you so much. All the staff and volunteers, most of whom are UC Berkeley students. So I want to give a big shout out to them. And then again, to both of our staffs who really made this event happen. Thank you all so much. I hope you go away with some bold ideas for some action, because that's what this is all about. Thank you very much. Have a great evening.